Welcome back, community, to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Diversity and Inclusion and Belonging Consulting, helping members of the C-Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. If you haven't noticed, I am so excited to have back with us Mr. Michael Bush, CEO of Great Place to Work. Our first conversation was so dynamic. I'm almost scared to open up the mic and let him have it for the second one, but we're going to go into this next one. Mr. Bush, welcome back. And I want to focus on Independence Day. So in my monologue earlier this month, we were celebrating Independence Day, specifically independence from assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs that we sometimes place on our peers and coworkers in the workplace. And I shared several data points about what the workplace of the future is anticipated to look like. So let me remind the community, to sum it all up, in 2002, the Bureau of Labor Statistics predicted that among the factors affecting the composition and growth of the labor force over the next 50 years, remember this was in 2002, are the aging of the baby boom generation, the stabilization of women's labor force participation rates, and increasing racial and ethnic diversity in the workforce. In 2050, which is 27 years from now, community, the workforce will have changed. So, Mr. Bush, my question to you is, how will the anticipated changes in the workplace demographics influence organizational belief systems that are still claiming that well-qualified, diverse candidates cannot be found?
Yeah, I think, Dr. Anita, it's great to be back. I think, if you look at the data that you just shared, and so we're talking about, a tremendous change of the minority becoming the majority in the United States in 2050. Now, if you look here as we're celebrating, the month of independence, at Gen Z, it's almost already happened. Okay, if you look at who we're recruiting now, already the minority is the majority.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? I have to ask you this question. How many folks do you think got uncomfortable when they heard you say the majority will become the minority?
A lot of people.
And why is that? Why is that?
Yeah. So, there's a sense of fear, that somehow due to demographic changes, a group of people are going to lose power and influence that they've had, which is part of the, for others to do well, I have to give up something. Yeah. I have to lose something. Now, you can't find any time in history where I believe that has happened. But fear is what it is. It's false evidence that appears to be real. Yes. And people absolutely have it. You can see, in South Africa, not that long ago, that the minority had inordinate power, And then you could also see a transition where they were not abused when things changed in terms of power. You can look at the country today and see that minority still has quite a bit of power. But people have this fear. And so they, therefore it makes them, less hesitant, to support change. And I actually think that even, the demographics that we're talking about today in terms of the change in 2050, the change right now in Gen Z and who's entering the workforce, those things won't modify behavior at all. I don't think behavior is going to be modified by those statistics. I think what is going to modify behavior is that over the next 15 to 20 years, if we take a company, any company, it's going to look different. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And I think these differences are better, because I think being different is better. That some people want things to stay the same, and some people want things to be very different. Some people would like to say, this discussion, Dr. Anita, of diversity, you're making things worse. You're talking about the differences. Well, the truth is, if you just focus on the ways that we're different, the road path forward is cloudy because you're just focusing on the differences, which is not reality. If you just, like some people, I just want to focus on the way that we're the same. We're the same. We all have the same blood. Well, if you just focus on the ways that we're the same, it's not reality, because human beings, we're intelligent. We're the only life species that can hold two opposing ideas at the same time. We're the same and we're different at the exact same time. And so I think that organizations are going to become more of that, which will be a good thing by recruiting Gen Zs. And so we're going to be more comfortable. And I think people who are bound on keeping things the same are going to move on to do other great things with their lives. Outside of companies are going to be the same, and different, and find ways to get past that to achieve the purpose of the organization. And once you do that, like, okay, yeah, we're different. We vote for different people. We eat different food. We listen to different music. We have different religious beliefs. I have no religious beliefs, perhaps. All those things are true. But the reason we're here is this business purpose. That's why we're here. And I want to be able to carry all those differences and pursue that purpose. I don't want to have to let go of any part of myself or ask anyone to do that, other than anything that's going to get in the way of us achieving this purpose. So if you just think of a whole bunch of arrows pointed in the same direction, and people passionately being a part of that, which means they feel like they're respected, they feel like they're needed, they feel very comfortable there, and that they've earned the chair. They feel if they work hard and live out the values of the company, they can get promoted. They feel like they're going to get paid the same as someone else who's doing the job and have the opportunity for promotions. They feel like the benefits that you get are the same benefits I'm going to get. You get flexibility, I get flexibility. You get healthcare, I get healthcare. You got care for your kids, I got healthcare for my pets. All these things are working themselves out in a way where I'm feeling pretty good here, and everybody feels that way. And so they get out of the shower and they can't get to work, because actually at work, they get treated better than they do in society. This is a super powerful feature of what a great organization can be. And then that organization, how is that organization not going to perform better when you've got people that are committed, in that manner? So I think that's the opportunity. I think for some, it causes, some fear, and I don't know how to help someone through that. In my experience, data doesn't do it. It's just, kind of a personal thing. But I still believe in it because I'm a business person. And I believe that every business that isn't doing those things, which is kind of every business right now, and I know, is leaving money on the table. And I want to be part of the movement, just like you, that helps businesses make more money than they thought they could make. They might be happy with their 10% gain today. They could be doubling that. And America as a nation, you went back to 2002. If you look to 2002, from 1960 to 2002, the GDP of the United States went from $568 billion to $14.4 trillion.
Wow.
That's what the era where the United States became the economic superpower. What led to that change? It wasn't affirmative action. It was the introduction of women and people of color into the workforce, because it had to happen, because so many jobs were being created. It had to happen. So, and this is a fact that I'm talking about. 568 to 14.4 trillion. This is the greatest diversity story never told. Now, just think if women and people of color were entered into the country, into the workforce, and treated like they belong and paid the same wage. Women were getting, 38 cents less on the dollar, so if they were treated like they were belonged, and they had the opportunity based on talent to be promoted based on, what's unfortunately happened, we would be the economic superpower today by far. We wouldn't be neck and neck with China as we are. We'd be way beyond that. So I feel like our country needs to catch up from a U.S. point of view, but every society can be improved through this notion of equity and equality for all, and business performance. Already there's cases where people are doing a better job in this area than others, and the economics in their stock price are showing the results of them behaving that way.
Now that's data that everybody can appreciate. I want to double back to a couple of things that you said. I want to draw a parallel between what we said in our first conversation about it's a good thing to have diversity in your portfolio to impact your investment, but we don't see the same emphasis on diversity in the workplace to increase your bottom line. Parallel that to, we're still talking about difference is not necessarily good, but one of the first things that a good business person will think about even before they get into the marketplace is, what's my differentiator? What's going to make me different and stand out, and what's going to make the crowd choose my product or my service over somebody else's? So we've got another opportunity there where it's good in this field to be different, but not good in the workplace to be different. What I really want to unpack was what you'd said about when I asked you the question about, do you think we made people uncomfortable when you made the statement that the majority is going to become the minority? I'm thinking about a situation here that happened last year on the LA City Council, where 3 of the most powerful seats on the council happen to be Hispanic, and they happen to be talking about ways to kind of edge Black folks out. And what I was trying to get people that I was talking about this with to understand is, we're talking now about human nature, because whoever's on top is going to do their level best to stay on top based on my research and things that I've heard and things that I've seen. So going back to the majority maybe getting nervous because the minority may become the majority, what do we do with that topic?
Yeah, I don't know, Dr. Anita. You know, I don't have a silver bullet there. You know, I wish that I did. Through my life's experience, I believe that you know, just like the way we started the session today, the fact that we've got a workforce that looks quite different.
Yes.
Than the demographics of the people who are leaving the workforce. Looks very different. That means our companies are going to get different. I think this is a good thing, you know, in terms of progress and letting go of some of the things that come from being a very young democracy, which the United States is. So talking about other countries, you know, and comparing them to the United States, it's pretty hard to do. We've got countries that are a couple of thousand years old, and we've got one, ours, which people like to say, you know, whatever, we're 260, 275 years old. I'd say we're about you know, really a 50-year-old democracy is what I would say, because women and people and Black people have got the right to vote. You know, so really we're super, super young. So it's good for some of the old thinking to move out and some of the new thinking from a new democracy to come in. And change of thought is a good thing. I think that within that, you know, we all get that there are some people who are going to feel like they're going to lose. In the United States data that I just shared on that move from 1960 to 2010, actually the data goes to 2010, and you look at, okay, what happened to wages by demographic groups? Wages for white men, supervisory level and up, from 1960 to 2010 went up 1,000%.
Wait, what was that number?
1,000%.
How is that even possible?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. You can go back and take a look at like a shop supervisor in 1960 and a shop supervisor in 2010, white male. Okay, and you can find excess of that if you go to executives.
I'm sure.
Okay, so white men did great. They made more money when women and people of color entered the workforce. The only group that lost were less than mediocre white men. Okay,
can you go back and explain to me how 1,000% increase of a white male's salary went up because women and people of color were in the workforce? I missed the connection.
Because the country became more productive. The country's performance.
Because other folks were let into the workforce.
That were not mediocre. So what happened?
Okay, so go back to your point about mediocre white male. What were you going to say there? I had to clarify that for myself.
That's who got replaced. That's who got replaced. You know, that some women came and they were pretty good, and they started getting promoted, whereas they weren't there. Mediocre people were getting promoted.
You know, folks are going to have a problem with what you just said, right?
Yeah. Well, people can ping me on LinkedIn or wherever they want to. I'll send them the research.
But that's why this is called Real Conversations from the C-Suite people.
That's why we're going here. And I have the research from the professors from Stanford Business School who are underneath the research. Okay. So it's easy to get mad at me saying these things. Other people said these things, and they were white men, by the way.
Yeah, go back to the source, right?
Yeah, we can go back to the source. It's a very powerful story, which is why I'm telling you. It tells you about a lot of things. Now, yeah, we had gains for people of color, gains for women in terms of pay, but at the end of it all, women were still making 62 cents on the dollar compared to white men.
Yep.
Still, okay, and people of color far less.
Yeah.
So this is what I meant by the nation left money on the table in terms of if they had done some things differently, but it's a great story. So I think who would I be afraid if I was, someone to be afraid of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging? It's because I'm a mediocre performer. I would be afraid. I would definitely be afraid. And this gets back to your point about, kind of the future and where we're heading, this 2002 to 2050 window. With all that's going on in the world today, every business listening today needs more productivity, more performance, higher rate of innovation, faster adaptability to change, has to do something about climate, and now has to integrate something they really don't understand, AI, into their business. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
No one's prepared at any company right now to lead through that. No one's workforce is prepared to work through that. These are facts. I think any thinking person understands these things are true. And the thing is, don't fear AI. Whenever somebody tells me don't fear something, I usually fear it.
Yeah, because they haven't studied it.
Because they have something going on, which means organizations need to have the best people on earth.
What I heard you say basically is when you mentioned those 6 things that all companies are going to have to grapple with, what I heard you say was all hands on deck, regardless of who you are, if we're going to stay afloat on the economic seas. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you need great people.
Yeah. In addition to that, the last thought that I want to leave with the community is this. Back to Mr. Bush's point earlier, it's not about taking anybody's slice of the pie. It's about making the slice bigger so that everyone can have a slice. That's really what this conversation boils down to. And in our next conversation with Mr. Bush, I don't know where it's going to go. I know where my questions are, but we'll take the conversation where it goes. In the meantime, community, to hear this podcast again or any of my previous podcasts, please go to my website, drnita.com, spell out the word doctor. At the top, find the link that says Keeping It Real Podcast. And I am available on some of your favorite podcast players. So please, I encourage you, get in the flow with me, follow, like, and overshare any podcast that helps you reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Share them with your network. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.